Evelyn was a woman blessed with wealth and a generous heart. She lived in a vast estate, surrounded by lush fields that stretched as far as the eye could see. Her farm was the pride of the region, known for its rich produce and the beautiful weavings she created in her spare time. People from far and wide would come to admire her work, drawn not just by the quality of her goods, but by the warmth she exuded. Her life, however, was about to take a dark turn. One sunny morning, as Evelyn was inspecting her farm, a young woman approached her. She was stunning, with a presence that seemed almost otherworldly. Her name was Ivy, and she was looking for work. Evelyn, who always had a soft spot for those in need, hired Ivy without a second thought. Ivy was to help around the house and assist with the farm when needed. Her beauty became the talk of the estate, but it wasn't long before whispers about Ivy's presence began to spread. At first, everything seemed perfect. Ivy was efficient, polite, and always eager to help. But soon, strange things began happening around the farm. Livestock started to fall ill, crops that had always been bountiful began to wither, and a sense of unease settled over the estate. Evelyn tried to brush off these occurrences as mere coincidence, but deep down, a nagging doubt began to grow. One night, Evelyn awoke to a chilling feeling in her chest. The air around her was thick, almost suffocating. She sat up in bed and felt an invisible weight pressing down on her. Struggling to breathe, she managed to reach for the lamp by her bedside. As the flame flickered to life, the heavy presence lifted, leaving Evelyn gasping for air. She knew something was terribly wrong. The next morning, she confronted Ivy. The young woman denied any knowledge of the strange happenings, her face a mask of innocence. But Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that Ivy was somehow connected to it all. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Evelyn decided to keep a closer eye on her. Days turned into weeks, and the eerie events only intensified. Evelyn noticed Ivy spending more time alone, often disappearing into the woods surrounding the estate. One evening, curiosity got the better of Evelyn, and she followed Ivy into the dense forest. She kept her distance, careful not to be seen. Ivy walked with purpose, as if she knew exactly where she was going. Evelyn watched as Ivy reached a clearing deep within the woods. There, in the center of the clearing, was an ancient-looking stone altar. Ivy approached it with a calm demeanor, and Evelyn's blood ran cold when she saw what happened next. Ivy's eyes turned black as night, and a dark mist began to swirl around her. She chanted words in a language Evelyn had never heard, and the air crackled with energy. Evelyn realized with horror that Ivy was not just a simple maid, she was something far more sinister. Terrified, Evelyn ran back to her estate, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she had to act quickly, but she couldn't reveal what she had seen without evidence. That night, she devised a plan. She would lure Ivy into revealing her true nature. The next day, Evelyn invited Ivy to help her with some weaving in the main house. As they worked, Evelyn spoke of the strange occurrences on the farm, hoping to catch Ivy off guard. But Ivy remained calm, her responses measured. Evelyn began to weave a story of an old family heirloom that was said to have protective powers. She claimed it was hidden in the house, hoping that the mention of this would provoke Ivy. To Evelyn's surprise, Ivy's demeanor changed. Her eyes narrowed, and a flicker of interest sparked in them. Evelyn knew she was on the right track. She continued, explaining that the heirloom was locked away in a secret room beneath the house, accessible only through a hidden passage. Ivy listened intently, her usual calm replaced by a quiet intensity. That night, Evelyn prepared herself for what was to come. She armed herself with a talisman she had kept for years, one that her grandmother had given her, saying it had the power to ward off evil. As the moon rose, she heard footsteps echoing through the hallways. Ivy was on the move. Evelyn followed her, careful to remain unseen. Ivy made her way to the hidden passage, which Evelyn had deliberately left slightly ajar. As Ivy descended into the darkness, Evelyn gathered her courage and followed her down. The passage led to a small chamber, where Evelyn had set a trap. She had placed the talisman on an old chest, hoping it would draw Ivy's attention. As expected, Ivy approached the chest, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. But the moment she touched the talisman, she recoiled in pain, her true form revealed. Her once beautiful face twisted into a grotesque mask of rage, her eyes burning with a demonic fire. Evelyn stood her ground, clutching another talisman in her hand. Ivy hissed, her voice no longer human, and lunged at Evelyn. But the talisman flared to life, casting a bright light that forced Ivy back. Evelyn chanted the words her grandmother had taught her, words of protection and banishment. Ivy screamed, her form flickering between human and demonic, until finally, with a final, anguished cry, she vanished into the darkness. The chamber fell silent, the air still and heavy. Evelyn collapsed to the ground, exhausted but relieved. She knew the danger had passed, but the cost had been high. The farm, once a place of peace and prosperity, had been tainted by the darkness that Ivy had brought with her. But Evelyn was determined to rebuild, to cleanse her home of the evil that had tried to consume it. In the weeks that followed, the farm began to heal. The crops flourished once more, and the livestock regained their health. The sense of unease that had plagued the estate lifted, replaced by a renewed sense of hope. Evelyn continued her work, but she was forever changed by the experience. She had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, but the memory of Ivy's true nature would haunt her for the rest of her days. Evelyn never spoke of what had happened to anyone, keeping the truth buried deep within her. But she knew that the world was full of mysteries, some better left unexplored. And she vowed to be more careful in the future, to trust her instincts and protect her home from the forces that sought to destroy it. As time passed, the story of the mysterious events on Evelyn's farm faded into legend, a tale whispered by the villagers on dark, stormy nights. But Evelyn would never forget the lesson she had learned, that evil could take many forms, even the most beautiful ones, and that true strength came from facing it head-on, no matter the cost.